By the year 2010, half the people of the world will live in cities. The centre of this one is probably the most influential there has ever been, but it's no bigger than the whole of London's parks put together. Ah, yes.
It's Paris.
Small, intense, but full of flavour. What are the ingredients of this astonishing creation? Over the course of an ordinary Parisian day, I want to investigate the ideas that have made this city the way it is. I want to burrow into it, to try to get beneath its skin. I want to meet its citizens and their eccentric obsessions, and by experiencing its astonishing traditions, get to grips with its appeal. Why do people adore Paris? And I think I'd better start, at first light, here in the Place de la Concorde.
Well, this is a very good time of the morning, so they tell me, to come here to the Place de Concorde to see the lengths that Paris will go to look perfect. 7.5 kilometres. In fact, that's how long the triumphal way is from the front door of the Louvre, along here, past this gigantic obelisk, and on, up here, for another 4 kilometres, on, up the Champs-Élysées there, to the top of the hill, through, straight through, the middle of the Arc de Triomphe there.
What a magnificent triumphal way, and it would be perfection, except that this arch, the brand new square one at La Défense, is not in line with the others. For some reason, it was built off-centre.
The architects, the state, the people of Paris wanted perfection. But there's always one awkward bugger who refuses to conform, so the rest of them will have something to talk about. And that is the glory of Paris.
Paris has probably had more ardent admirers than any other place on earth. From the Roman Emperor Julian, who called it his beloved city, to Adolf Hitler, who in 1940 wrote that he had always longed to visit Paris, having just done so with his army and 40,000 tanks. It was considered too beautiful to bomb and survived the Second World War intact when many other places were razed to the ground. Paris is exquisite in scale and content. It has over 40,000 public monuments. New York may boast bigger, taller, London more extensive, but Paris knows it has the finest. It's the attention to detail that makes this city tick. You can't just make bread here, you've got to make the world's best bread. At the Poilâne Bakery, that means making it by hand. A little bit of flour.
Voilà.
There we are, voila. Now I'm going to go and strangle it. The kneaded dough has to be moved to a proving bin to rise. And it has to be done to schedule, or the bread will spoil. French bread is special because of its simplicity. The law dictates it must be made from flour, yeast, salt and water, and nothing else, except perhaps the odd drop of sweat. Felix wants me to hurry up because we have to do all this before daybreak, as it were. This is actually quite...
C'est bien là.
C'est bien, oui. Even the oven is hard work.
Voila!
The bakery uses wood.
Okay?
The flames have to reach 300 degrees centigrade.
One more.
We're not making baguettes. They were a Viennese invention. We're making traditional French country bread. Round, slightly tough, and beyond compare. In this city, 70% of the bread is made by hand. In Britain, 3%.
It's just continuous physical action. It's hard work making bread.
With no preservatives in it, fresh bread has to be collected twice a day, so Parisians have to work to get hold of the stuff as well. You queue for good bread in Paris. Luckily, there's a bread shop on average every 100 metres. Lack of bread was a cause of the French Revolution, so I hope I've made enough for this lot. As the markets open, Paris is preparing herself for another day showing off to the world. For its size, Paris is the world's biggest spender on keeping up appearances. As I negotiate the centre of town, I have to jump over a puddle, but it's not a casual puddle.
Actually, it hasn't been raining. There are two water systems in Paris. One for drinking, and one which was the old water system, which they just left. And now they use for cleaning the street. And every now and again they turn a switch and it starts pouring out of the curb. It's a major industry, keeping Paris clean.
And there's a lot more to it than swilling out the gutters. On the left bank, in the east of the city, I'm joining an elite unit of sanitary engineers.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour.
They have their spies at all the major monuments, with specific instructions to move into action at a moment's notice. This is the Crack Graffiti Eradication Squad de Paris.
It's been estimated that graffiti artists hit 300,000 square metres of Paris surface every year. 40% of the houses have been tagged, and in 2004 there was a concerted campaign to write advertising kills on every single billboard in the city.
We skirt the Pantheon and rush past Notre Dame to get down to the banks of the Seine to find our offending daub. Some years ago, Parisian politicians needed to debate whether graffiti was an eyesore or a form of free expression. They decided any graffiti should be removed immediately from all monuments.
And the other priorities are politics, which have to go like that, and racism. No racism. So the rest of the graffiti, if you're in the mind to come and decorate Paris, you could get away art, it would stay for a bit longer, but those things, we had to be here straight off.
Michel starts up the machine, and I get to grips with the blaster.
How very utterly satisfying this is. I'll get one of these for where I live in London. I can only give a Gallic gesture of satisfaction. I go, bravo!
It's now 7:30, and I take to the river going west. I don't want to be late for school, and I'm heading to the world's tallest classroom. The River Seine is the reason why the city of Paris is here. 200 years ago, Paris was the second biggest port in France. It's still one of the biggest river ports in the world, but somehow manages to be a little more alluring than Felixstowe docks. It's rush hour for the 3 million students who live here. I'm joining a school trip to the premier étage. The Eiffel Tower dominates this town, as indeed it was meant to. It was built in 1889 to convincingly demonstrate that France was the top of her class.
They are afraid of foreigners.
I know, me too.
Today, Madame Bertrand will teach her pupils from Lyon the significance of the world's largest Meccano model, with special reference to its 2.5 million rivets.
Oui.
What Madame is probably not going to tell them is that all the intellectuals, all the writers, absolutely hated this tower when it went up. Guy de Maupassant, the novelist, used to come here and have lunch every day. And when he was asked why, he said, because having lunch here is the only place in Paris that I can't see the damn thing.
But it didn't stay unpopular for long. 10 years after it was built, 50 million visitors, or 1/5 of the whole population of Europe, came to the 1900 World Fair to have a look at the thing. It has remained the world's most visited attraction ever since. The Petit Palais, the Grand Palais, the Musée d'Orsay and the Trocadero were also all built for these mammoth expositions, and all have stayed to adorn the city.
They were meant to demonstrate not just that France was perfect at food, wine and fashion, but also that France was perfect at science, manufacturing and engineering.
For all its obvious visibility, the real wonder of this place is hidden away out of sight. 120 years ago, the lift mechanism was hailed as a miracle of French engineering. Incredibly, it's still faithfully lifting and lowering, and I've been invited to keep it lubricated. Once a week, a special grease has to be applied to the mechanism while it's still moving. It's boiling hot and it smells incredible, and that's because it's molten mutton fat, and it gets everywhere.
You just get the impression that sooner or later somebody's going to slip on the mutton grease and into the machinery. Dearie me. Here we go. More fat. Applying the mutton fat. Whee! Good stuff. Greasing the wheels. No doubt, if I was a proper Frenchman, what I'd do now is take a big scoop of that and spread it on a piece of bread and have it for my lunch.
The tower was meant to be temporary, but stuck around as a symbol of French pride in their engineering prowess. It also came to symbolise French pride in their military prowess.
During the First World War, the Germans came to within 50 miles of Paris, and the Eiffel Tower was used as a giant lookout post to direct the French troops, who were ferried to the battle in Parisian taxis. This had two results. First of all, it made Parisian taxi drivers rather rich because, well, 50 miles is a long way and they charged the full fare. And secondly, it turned the Eiffel Tower into a monument of victory.
So the tower celebrates yet another victory for the French army. As if there wasn't quite enough of that sort of thing around here anyway. The west of Paris is dominated by grand military buildings and vast parade grounds, like the Officer Training School, where I have a 10 a.m. meeting with born and bred Parisian Captain Bédigy.
What do you think is the great secret of Paris?
The great secret of Paris?
Well, I don't mean the great secret, hidden secret, but what is the
if I tell you, I will have to kill you.
Paris?
If I tell you, I will have to kill you.
Oh, well, you're one of the few people who could probably have that done quite efficiently, I should think.
Indeed, he could, because the school proudly leads the world in unarmed combat, and I'm due in class.
Go.
Le deuxième genou sur la nuque. La main dans l'autre sens.
I think the sergeant is explaining that he now has the complete attention of the recruit.
And could break his arm in 4 places.
It's probably very worth remembering if you should ever come to Paris as a
Alors si
football
on est vraiment
hooligan.
très méchant.
Oh, God! Ah! Oh, yes! Oh, sol, oui. What? Oui, Je me rends. That means I surrender. I hope.
After subduing me, Captain Bédigy reminded me how France had once dominated the whole of Europe.
One of the most
famous cadets.
Same celebrated graduates, I was going to say, of the school was Napoleon.
That's right. He was a graduate. He attended a course of 1 year instead of 3 years.
Is that because he was so good?
No, he was in a hurry. You know, he had to conquer Europe, so that's the reason why he was so
So he got
hasty.
through the whole thing quickly, just did his year, and then galloped off to conquer Europe.
And conquer it he did. The Arc de Triomphe is a monument to that boast. It dominates northwest Paris. Completed 50 years after his death, the only time Boney ever came here was during his funeral procession. Today, as every day, French war veterans commemorate their fallen comrades by relighting the flame on the tomb of the unknown soldier. This eternal fire has been alight since 1920.
The flame has only been extinguished once, and that was by a drunken Mexican football supporter on the night that Brazil beat France here in Paris. The tomb of the Mexican football supporter is unknown.
Army manoeuvres are why Paris has one of the most magnificent layouts of any city in the world, and the Arc de Triomphe is the perfect place to appreciate it. In 1852, after 80 years of fighting in the streets, Paris's narrow medieval lanes, some of which exist today, were seen as overcrowded, congested, and perfect for riots. The city was set for its makeover king, or perhaps I should say, baron.
Now here we are, this is what I'm looking for, because this is the name, houseman, of the Baron, who essentially completely and utterly transformed Paris into what we think of it as being today. And working for his boss, Napoleon III, what he essentially did was bash a series of enormous streets right the way through the middle of Paris, called boulevards. They were designed to get cavalry troops straight to the heart of any future trouble from Paris citizens. But they also, bizarrely, got rid of all the working classes and turned Paris into a city of rich people living in expensive houses.
This essentially made inner city Paris into one big Kensington and Chelsea. Even today, Paris is the richest city in Europe. To service the wealthy, it's stuffed with expensive shops and natty boutiques. If you know your way, you can virtually cross the centre of the city via these hidden passages. They were built to stop the rich from getting wet. Naturally, Paris is thick with beauty salons, and I've met up with a natural Parisian redhead for her 12 o'clock appointment.
Here we are, this is Vainey, who's named after a Tahitian maiden, and she's an apricot-coloured Ganesh, a poodle.
She's here for a cut and blow dry. I'm here to assist. It's clear that fashion is a serious business, even for dogs.
Penche la tête en frétillant. Je dois m'en aller en Italie en laissant tout
Into the bath. Woo! Voila!
Un chien lui tient.
She's taken on a different sort of demeanour now. It's unfair, really, to show a lady in this way, as it were, without her finery.
Combien pour ce chien dans la vie?
Blimey, this is going to blow her off the table. Hold on tight.
Combien pour ce chien dans la vitrine qui me regarde?
Oh, my dog!
Yes!
Dog dinner, ah, oui! Oui.
Good.
Oui.
Dans
Really? Bon.
Il y a des
Yes.
voleurs de cœur.
Au revoir!
75 euros lighter, I'm ready to walk my poodle about a bit. And walking about a bit really is a Parisian obsession. Baron Haussmann may have developed the boulevard, but he didn't invent it. That happened 100 years earlier, when King Louis XIV, the Sun King, knocked down the city walls to show how sunny he was. The walkways he made in their place were called boulevards, after the Dutch word for walls. And they created another side effect.
The Parisians started parading about. In fact, they liked parading about so much that they had to have lots of extra places made for doing it, like the Tuileries Gardens here. Outside drawing rooms, not really parks, places for walking up and down. And of course, if you walk up and down like that in front of lots of people, you have to look good. So fashion became extremely important.
But I'm in search of another great historical tradition: lunch. Lunch is so important in Paris, nearly all office workers are still given luncheon vouchers to ensure that they eat properly. Paris is actually the centre of haute cuisine because of the Revolution. When the palaces closed, their chefs opened a recent invention called the restaurant. The Grand Vefort actually dates from before that time.
Hello, Griff. How are you?
I'm all right.
It's been here since 1760. It's an appropriate place to meet a Parisian socialite called Florence.
I've brought Vahini with me. Yes,
Hello,
isn't she
Vahini.
pretty?
And the dog, well, she's perfectly welcome in one of Paris's perfect restaurants.
It seems that in London, we like to have lots of things.
In Paris, it's completely different. People don't like to consume like this, like crazy. They like to take the time and to make the nice choice, the right choice, the right selection.
So although things are expensive, people are being very demanding.
Yes,
They're
very
choosing.
demanding about the quality, so they choose, they take their time for this. You have to work for the pleasure, but when you get the pleasure, you're so happy.
At €98, my lobster wasn't cheap, but of course it was excellent. Well, as far as the dog was concerned, it was. Choosiness also applies to relationships. Paris is known as the City of Love, but in reality it has the highest proportion of singles in any city in Europe. Unsurprisingly, pets have become essential alternative companions. To the east of the city is a cemetery, which certainly shows the intensity of that relationship.
To my prince, who left me with a great sadness. And now it's not very well tended, unfortunately, the grave. I wonder whether ta petite maman Louisiane has gone to the great walkies in the sky. But I don't think that, you see, I didn't think the Parisians were sentimental about animals. I think that they sort of ate everything.
Yeah, but not their pets. Pull yourself together. While in Paris, many visitors like to pay their respects at the grave of Jim Morrison, the late lead singer of The Doors. But in fact, he wasn't the only American star to end his days here. But enough of loyalty. It's time to investigate the Parisian independence of spirit.
Coming out? No, we're not. We're coming out. But I'm just not used to it. We are more polite in London.
You have...
The very bricks, stones and cobbles remind us of the past in Paris, although it is a few years since they were torn up and thrown about in the name of revolution. But we should not assume that the spirit of rebellion is dead. Parisians are still fiercely independent of all petty rules and regulations, particularly at the wheel of a car. I've got to get across town Dr. Thierry has lent me his prized vehicle to do so. We intend to negotiate our way past the greatest obstacle to road safety in the whole of Paris.
It doesn't seem to be responding. I must be in third, do you think?
No, you're probably in first.
It's got us into second. Yes.
The Arc de Triomphe. The Great Monument is in the middle of a monumental roundabout. 12 massive highways converge on it. This is the Wild West.
Oh. Here we go. Now we're coming out into the Arc de Triomphe. Wait, do we have priority?
You have priority.
Paris does not try to control the traffic, it lets it fight it out for itself. There are no lane markings, but there are lots of cars. And just 2 rules. 1, give way to your right.
Let me have it. Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree.
And 2, obey no other rules.
I don't want to get too far into the middle because we'll never get out again.
It's real.
We won't.
To add to my difficulties,
Off the roundabout.
il pleut.
You have to push because you have no priority to go.
You have to push and say, I'll go. You're stuck here.
Yes, I'm stuck here in the middle forever and ever and ever.
Any motorist might also like to know a little secret of the Arc de Triomphe regarding accidents.
I also understand that the traffic is so complicated that if you have a crash, it doesn't matter
Yeah, you
who you crash or who is to blame.
You are also
share the
50-50.
50-50.
50-50, always. Mine.
This is Dodgems. We're down here. Is that all right?
Yeah.
We're off. We're off the Arc de Triomphe.
You can.
Hey.
It's a U-turn.
Illegal.
Normally you could, you can't.
Well, normally. Okay.
Oh, it was nice.
There we go. Thank you, Thierry. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good. Oh, thank you. Well, that was exciting. Made just a little bit more demanding by the fact that I drove 50% of the way with the brake on.
Leaving the driving to those who do it worst, I continue on one of the city's free bikes. At the top of Montmartre, behind the Cathedral Sacré-Cœur, I'm looking for one of Paris's little unexpected treasures. This area used to be the largest wine-making region in France. Now it's the smallest, and this is the last working vineyard in the capital.
We're right in the middle of the city here, but this isn't a toy vineyard at all. In fact, it produces about 2,000 half bottles of red wine, which are much sought after and which have won a whole series of prizes for the region.
After half an hour of chatting about the vines, Président Monsieur Lançois decided to entrust me with a little secret.
Vous voulez un secret? J'ai un secret que je peux vous dire sur le cépage.
Apparently, some of the vines here are of an illegal grape type banned in the rest of the country.
It's a strictly forbidden variety of grape because it makes you hallucinatory?
Yes,
Oui.
and
Yes. But it goes in this wine.
Well, I don't mind. And neither does this bee, as it makes its round of Paris's exceptional outdoor spaces, flying from the vineyard of Montmartre to the flowers of the botanical gardens, and on to the finest fruit blossom in the country, which just happens to be grown in the Luxembourg Gardens. Eventually, it'll come home. But this bee doesn't live in an ordinary hive. It lives on a roof. And that roof is on top of the Paris Opera. The hive was set up here by Jean, the opera prop maker. He did it at the recommendation of the fire department, as Albina tries to explain.
One of the firemen of the opera house, who himself starts breeding trouts at the basement of the opera house.
Right, wait a minute. Now, so there was a fireman of the opera house who was breeding trout already in the basement of the opera house.
Yes.
Because there is a secret lake
underneath the opera house.
Exactly.
So what makes it so good?
If you go to the French countryside, you don't find exactly the same quality of honey because of the pesticides that they use.
I see. So how wonderful. So this is not just a sort of crazy hobby, having the bees on the roof of the opera house. It actually produces the very finest honey in France.
Absolutely.
Lovely honey, vicious bees. As soon as I took off my netting, they simply came and got me. One on my hand and one just settled on my head and it hurt. The opera house was designed by Charles Garnier, using a mishmash of exotic architectural details. When he was asked by the emperor's wife what style it was supposed to be, he hesitated and in a moment of inspiration named it after her husband. The style Napoleon III is now everywhere in Paris and part of architectural history. As the 5 to 7 bell calls the audience to their seats and the bees go off to sleep on the roof, I join some hardy people who like their evening entertainment a little more energetic. These Parisians are lining up to skate across Paris, and so I hope am I, though I've never inline skated further than the edge of the curb. It's still the rush hour, but in Paris they close the streets for this every Friday evening. As it happens, tonight is Wednesday. My new companions head straight into the traffic, and I head straight into a bus. Paris is the skating capital of Europe. Some of these rambles attract up to 24,000 people. The inline skates were originally seen as the solution to the out-of-line public transport workers who were going on strike all the time.
I think I am now the major obstruction in the Paris streets, potentially going to cause a gridlock of my own at any moment. This is your correspondent on the inline skates in the streets of Paris, heading towards the Marais. A sweat bucket. Most of it pure fear. That was the most dangerous thing I have ever done in my life.
The City of Light lives up to its reputation and switches itself on. "80,000 tourists will have enjoyed its pleasures today. 25,000 of them will have pondered the smile of the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, the world's largest and busiest museum. And now many of them are pondering the menu du jour. It may be approaching midnight, but the brasserie was invented to satisfy the desire to eat good food no matter what time of day or night. Last orders here at Beaufingé are at 1 a.m, but you can stay until you finish. They won't throw you out, however long you linger over your coffee.
Hi. Bonsoir. Bienvenue. Hi. It's your first day here?
Yeah.
So just to close the restaurant?
Yeah, just to help in any way I can.
Yeah.
Now, am I dressed okay?
You're welcome.
Good.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
There are 120,000 waiters at work in Paris. What's the view from the other side of the table?
Okay.
You want something on the...
No, it's okay. No, I'll get used to it.
This place is a favourite with French prime ministers and presidents. But if they come tonight, I won't be let loose on them. Thierry takes his job seriously. Things must be done correctly.
Never.
No?
One of these.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Allez, go. Here.
Okay.
Here.
Trays must be carried properly.
I'm frightened of that door. They've just arrived.
It's 10 to 1 in the morning and people are still arriving to eat.
Your problem.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm still struggling with the basics.
Oh, yes, of course.
And those damn trays.
Comme ça? Comme ça?
Yeah. Let's go.
On the tray as well. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Let's go quickly, please.
Yes, sir. Fini?
And how many coffee?
In France, being a waiter is a proper career, not an option between engagements in a West End musical.
How long would it take me to learn?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
For starter, for waiter, for head waiter, maybe 10 years.
I have 6 tables to look after, and now I've lost an order.
I'm not carrying this off with aplomb at the moment. You see?
At 2:31 a.m, the restaurant finally closes, and I may have even got the hang of the tray. Tonight, here at Beaufangre, they will have served 800 dinners and dished up 20 kilos of foie gras. Across Paris, 82 tons of oysters will have been washed down by 80,000 bottles of champagne. As for me, I'm feeling a little exhausted. Though it's nearly 3 a.m, I have one last appointment. It's with a group of people who seem to typify the Parisian frame of mind. The UX are rebellious, passionate, and nocturnal. They restore monuments to exacting standards without any permission at all in the middle of the night. 2 years ago, they broke into one of Paris's most important monuments, the Panthéon. They spent a year mending a clock. The authorities didn't notice a thing, even when the clock started working. Eventually, they took the group to court, but a judge decided no law had been broken. Lazare claims they have secret access to anywhere in Paris.
And these are underground places?
Not obligatorily. It could be anything. The city hall doesn't even know they got some. They own some buildings, some flats, some place.
Tonight, they're taking me to look at their latest baby. They've driven me to a street in Paris, and I've no idea where I am. They open a locked manhole cover and tell me to get in quickly before the police spot us. We descend into a tunnel deep underground. Lazare doesn't want the authorities to know what he's doing, so there are certain things we were not allowed to film. Suddenly we hear music.
Perhaps this connects to a nightclub or something. It's possible, isn't it? There's obviously a lot of power required here for buses. Okay.
We're passing a venue, and in order not to be discovered, we're told to continue in silence. 15 minutes later, and we reach what we're looking for.
It's a hole.
Yeah, it's an interconnection or between two different networks.
Right. And I have to go down it, do I?
Sure you do.
The break in the floor is where 2 tunnel systems meet.
Good, slowly good.
It will take us into a much deeper and older system of passageways.
Where are we now, Lazare?
We are in the last ancient original quarry under Paris.
And we still have a way to go?
Yeah. Let's go to my office.
To your office?
Yeah.
Okay.
In order to build Paris, they needed a lot of stone, so they carved out huge subterranean quarries where the southern reaches of the city now stand. there are nearly 300 kilometres of underground passages. Some of them are open to the public, but this section definitely is not.
Okay, guys. Bonsoir.
Welcome. Have a seat.
Lazar and his team are here to make an illegal survey of this least explored section of the subterranean tunnels.
Unter Günther are supposed... Our goal is to try to preserve the most hidden heritage we can.
You are the Unter Günther.
Yeah.
And you are a sort of an association, a club?
No, we are a clandestine group. Clandestine group.
Oh,
Not only do they restore the forgotten treasures of Paris, they also stage private cultural events, holding clandestine film festivals in secret cinemas. Well, nearly always secret.
Someone told the police?
Someone told the police, and the police came, and because there was a couscous maker, they thought it was a bomb.
It was a bomb? This was a thing for making couscous?
Yeah.
So you ate couscous while seeing your festival?
No.
Films?
Yeah, sometimes we do, but it wasn't the point.
No.
It was a purely decorative couscous maker just...
This is very French, that you had a couscous maker as well.
For decoration.
Yes. Oh, for decoration,
yeah.
But anyway.
Well, there's another one to make couscous, of course, but that's not the one they saw.
We would have a popcorn maker, at the very least. But
we have one too, but they don't take it for a bomb.
Leaving Lazar to his work, I take the opportunity to explore another part of the quarry, and I encounter one of the more macabre spectacles that Paris has to offer. In 1800, all of these underground tunnels were mapped by government inspectors. Some were marked with the name of the street immediately above them, so people didn't get lost. But I'm heading to a particular part of the tunnel system with a very particular use. It was used to store bones. These catacombs contain the remains of nearly 6 million Parisians.
You have to imagine, in 18th century France, there was quite a lot of death. It was a rather gruesome place, plagues and things like that, and the cemeteries were getting rather full. So what they did was they emptied them out, and they threw all the bones down in these tunnels, and about 50 years later, along came someone who thought they'd better tidy them up. So they made these walls. Over here, you see here are the arm bones laid one on top of the other, and a row of skulls on the top for decoration, with a nice bit of skull work about halfway down round here. I think it's rather exciting to think that here is essentially the medieval population of Paris.
We've been exploring this city for nearly 24 hours. Lazar offers to take me to watch the dawn come up. He knows a superb vantage point, and special access is required. We're at the top of an 11th century Gothic masterpiece. 250 years ago, Notre Dame Cathedral was so badly damaged it was sold for scrap. But the author Victor Hugo wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame in order to draw attention to its plight, and the great church was saved and ultimately restored. Today, she takes her place at the head of a legion of great Parisian buildings. In a city her citizens are justly proud of, a city striving for perfection and even in its showier moments achieving a sort of fairy tale majesty. There may be no such thing as a perfect city, but
I don't know, Paris is pretty magical, especially at this time of night. And what I love about the place, what I've really discovered is the way that people really do put so much discipline and effort and work into the quality of life. Even the rebels put their back into it. It's rather nice to think that somewhere out there now, someone is actually having a sleepless night about trying to improve a sauce, or make a delicious soup, or bake the perfect cake.
Download walking tour maps of the cities and get Griff's podcasts at itv.com/cities. And next, over on ITV2, join Keith Lemon, Holly Willoughby and Fern Cotton for the hilarious Celebrity Juice. And it's Out of Sight with George Clooney on ITV3.